Welcome to the second webinar in the Summer 2025 series for the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan. This series will provide an overview of the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan process and future opportunities to provide input. My name is Jamie Burchard, and I am the Director of Resilience and Community Infrastructure at the New York State Department of State Office for Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure. I also participate on the steering committee for the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan. I am joined this evening by my colleague Paul Beyer, who is the Director of Smart Growth. This is the second webinar in our series, the first being hosted by the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority on June 26th about the New York State Climate Impacts Assessment. Please check back on the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan webpage for the posted recordings of all our webinars. Next slide. Our agenda this evening will focus on an overview of the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan with a focused discussion on two Department of State initiatives that feature adaptation planning and local ownership: the Smart Growth Countywide Resiliency Program and the Coastal Lakeshore Economy and Resiliency, CLEAR, initiative. We'll end with an opportunity for question and answers, but feel free to submit questions during the presentation and our team will respond as appropriate. Any questions that require myself or Paul to answer, we will answer at the end. This is a directional slide for how to use the features within the WebEx platform. Closed captions can be turned on using the icon to the left, where you can select your preferred language. To utilize the chat feature, please click on the thought bubble feature to the right. The three dots also on the right, you can access the Q&A box as well as the polling tool. The chat button can be used if you would like to send a direct question to our panel, which are all DOS team members. The Q&A feature will be more broadly across the full audience. Please be aware that this webinar will feature 7 polling questions. We also will have QR codes on the slides to direct you to resource web links. Please use the camera feature on your phone to access the QR codes. Feel free to also drop your email in the chat or Q&A, and the DOS team can send to you the direct links from this presentation. Next slide. So let's try out our first polling question for practice. Why did you join today's webinar? This is an open question. Feel free to enter your response however you wish. Please note that the poll is again on the right side of your screen. We'll take a few moments for you to put your answer in. Please know that if the polling box disappears, you can click on the 3 dots on the bottom right, and the polling feature will get back onto your screen. We will advance our presentation, but please know that you can still access while we continue to speak. Next slide. Before we begin, our team would like to acknowledge the tragic, severe, and deadly flooding that has occurred this week in Central Texas, primarily impacting the Hill Country region. The flash floods, which began around the 4th of July weekend, have resulted in a significant loss of life. This has been a devastating event for the affected communities, and recovery efforts are expected to continue. We'll now transition into the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan overview. There is a wide range of climate resilience and adaptation planning initiatives currently being implemented statewide, with the majority being led by individual state agencies. Despite the many valuable efforts, there is a need for more coordination across state agencies to strengthen efforts. Next slide. During Earth Week 2025, Governor Hochul announced the launch of a statewide climate adaptation and resilience plan. Over the course of the next year, this initiative will equip state and local partners with shared direction and foster collaboration across every region of the state, ensuring New Yorkers are better equipped and prepared for the devastating storms that cause more than $1 billion in damages for New York annually. The coordination initiative for this plan is being led by the Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, Department of State, DOS, the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, DISHES, and New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, NYSARP, in partnership with other state agencies. Next slide. As mentioned, there is a wide range of climate resilience and adaptation planning initiatives currently being implemented statewide, with the majority being led by individual state agencies. Some examples are shown on this slide, with direct links available on the DEC New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan website. These efforts will continue throughout this broader planning effort. The New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan seeks to build upon, rather than duplicate, these efforts to guide our ongoing climate resiliency across the state, unifying these efforts under a common vision and principles to better support state and local adaptation. Next slide. The first step, or foundational phase, of the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan development involves an analysis of existing New York State adaptation and resilience planning efforts. This links together existing planning across the state to establish a baseline understanding and identify gaps in adaptation planning. At the end of this analysis, New York State will utilize findings to develop a framework that unifies future efforts, including a collective vision, principles, and resources. To achieve the vision and principles, this framework will identify early actions for the state to undertake to implement the framework in the next phase. The actions will be informed by a coordinated strategy to ensure that state agencies, community-based organizations, and partners are well positioned to increase resilience, build adaptive capacity across New York communities, and ensure tools and resources are accessible to help communities thrive in a changing climate. Next slide. We have now arrived at our second polling question. When you think about the future of New York State, which of the impacts listed below are your biggest concerns? Please select your top two concerns. A, damage to critical infrastructure such as roads, electricity supply, etc. B, second option, public health impacts such as greater incidence of disease, extreme heat, illness, asthma, poor air quality. The third option, C, challenges with food production and supply. The fourth option, D, degraded natural resources such as water and air quality, habitat loss. And the fifth option, E, for other. Again, please select your top two concerns. Feel free to continue answering the question as we move ahead. The New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan framework will guide adaptation planning and implementation in New York State by articulating a collective vision, documenting principles that resonate with local efforts, providing available resources, and identifying early identified actions for the state to undertake. The framework will be informed by input from local government staff, vulnerable populations, and adaptation and resilience experts, among others. And the draft framework will be made available for public comment in late 2025, early 2026. New York State has established collective goals to guide the development of the framework. By establishing a coordinated strategy to increase resilience and build adaptive capacity across New York communities, developing tools and resources to help communities thrive in a changing climate, and helping New Yorkers better understand what the state is doing to adapt to climate change. These high-level goals will help ensure the framework is actionable and equitable and will set New York State up for success in launching its identified near-term actions. We'll now move forward into our third polling question. What key principles or priorities guide your local adaptation and resilience planning efforts? Again, please select your two top priorities. A, the first option, reducing the most risk or potential harm. B, the second option, addressing the needs of vulnerable communities. The third option, C, efficient use of government resources. D, the fourth option, coordinated and centralized approach to action. E, the fifth option, informed action by local governments, community-based organizations, and New Yorkers. F, using the latest climate science and information. G, other, or H, does not apply to me. Again, select your two top priorities. Feel free to keep selecting and we'll move ahead. A key component of the framework development is the engagement and feedback of key partners who have an impact on the future of adaptation and resilience efforts across New York State. These audiences include New York State agencies, local governments, partners, community organizations, and the general public. In order to ensure as many perspectives and needs are taken into consideration as possible, as well as to ensure transparency to New Yorkers, these audiences will be engaged throughout the framework development process. Next slide. We now have arrived at our fourth polling question. Imagine you want to find information or resources to learn more about climate change impacts or hazards and ways to prepare or plan for yourself, your family, your business, and or your community. Where would you look first? For this polling question, we are looking for only one option. The first, A, New York State websites. B, dedicated climate resilience organization. C, the third option, general internet search, such as a Google search. D, the fourth option, a personal contact, such as a friend who works in the climate field. E, published media, such as a book or article. F, social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And the last option is other. Please continue, and we'll advance the polling, the slide deck. During the foundational phase, the state will engage with local partners, community leaders, practitioners, and experts in developing the framework. New York State will strive for all interested community members to have the opportunity to learn about and contribute to the framework's development through a combination of standing adaptation advisory panels, targeted focus groups, webinars, and a public comment period. Along the way, New York State is setting up advisory panels and will conduct targeted focus groups and interviews to inform what needs should be addressed and what actions New York State should take to advance adaptation and resilience efforts. New York State is planning a webinar series where New Yorkers can attend to hear more about this work and key climate considerations in New York State. The first 4 webinars are slated for the summer of 2005. Each leading agency will showcase the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan process and relevant initiatives or resources that address climate impacts in New York State. This is the second of those webinars. The state is also planning additional webinars near the public comment period. More information on all webinars, including registration information, will be released on the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan website in the coming months. It is important to note that the milestones listed on this slide are not an exhaustive list of ways New York State is engaging with community members in Phase 1, and the timeline may change as we continue to develop the framework. Next slide. We are now going to transition into the DOS featured discussion about the community-based resiliency planning, the feature of tonight's webinar. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Paul Beyer.
Of programs at the Department of State's Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure that focused on this subject. That is the CLEAR program, which Jamie will address later, and the Countywide Resiliency Planning Program, which I'll explain shortly. Next slide, please. So overall perspective here, the office that Jamie and I occupy is called the Office of Planning, Development, Community Infrastructure. I'll refer to that as OPDCI. You see that right in the middle. But we're in an agency that administers a whole host of different varied programs that you see on your screen. We engage in consumer protection, licensing of professions and businesses, local government, and new Americans. And we actually strive to integrate these programs as divergent as they seem. We often work to involve new Americans in our planning and development programs, and we consult our local government division for expertise on local planning and land use issues. Next slide. Our main focus at OPDCI is to increase resilience and sustainable growth in New York communities. And we do that by advancing progressive land use and water use solutions through community-based development. One of our core functions is to engage communities and partners in a strategic planning effort, and then follow that with immediate and ongoing implementation, what we call the Plan Then Act strategy. So we do effective planning, robust and equitable outreach and engagement, and increase resiliency and sustainable growth through a number of programs, particularly the two that we're talking about today. Next slide, please. Now we're going to do a poll question. What Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure programs or initiatives are you familiar with? And there's a list. Please select all that apply. A, Downtown Revitalization Initiative. B, New York Forward. C, Local Waterfront Revitalization. D, Coastal Lakeshore Economy and Resiliency, CLEAR, the subject of Jamie's talk later. Smart Growth Countywide Resiliency Planning, this program. Brownfield Opportunity Area. Ocean and Great Lakes South Shore Estuary Reserve on Long Island. University Partnerships for Innovative Climate Solutions. Or the final, J, these are all new to me. Next slide. So the Smart Growth Countywide Resiliency Planning Program. I want to talk about this program also in its historical context, because this program evolved over years as we responded to several different climate-related severe weather events. And it also addresses a burgeoning issue within our office, in fact, which led to a whole new resiliency unit with several employees at this point focused exclusively on resiliency planning, with Jamie at the helm. Next slide, please. First, let's start with the Countywide Resiliency Planning Program, what it provides, the bare necessities of the program. We provide grants of up to $300,000 for counties, regional planning councils, and qualified not-for-profits to, as the name implies, develop resiliency plans on the countywide level. We have awardees address a variety of climate hazards and risks like sea level rise, drought, extreme heat, increased frequency and intensity of storms, and the resultant effects from these climate-related changes. And there's a few foundational requirements in every plan. Assessment of risk to key assets, establishing a vision statement for resiliency, projects and actions to increase resiliency, protecting vulnerable populations and providing economic co-benefits, regional coordination outside of the county, and robust public outreach. Throughout this program and all of our programs that address resiliency at OPDCI, we place a tremendous emphasis on using natural and nature-based systems to address climate risks and hazards. Next slide, please. So why are we planning on the county level? Why are we giving grants to counties and municipalities? After all, we are a home rule state in New York, which means legally local governments like cities, towns, and villages have sole power over local land use and zoning. So why would we plan on the county level? Well, there are a number of reasons. We all know that flooding and climate events, drought, extreme rain, exist across municipal lines. You very rarely see a severe weather event that affects one municipality. So we wanted to approach planning through a multi-municipal lens. We also felt that local municipalities could benefit from a county-wide lens and the projects and the information and the outreach that is generated through a county-wide plan. And then the localities, the municipalities, can incorporate those principles and those projects into their local land use plans over which they have home rule authority. I should also note that we are the home of smart growth here at OPDCI, and we have embraced climate resiliency as one of our 10 smart growth principles. So this also helps us, if we can plan on the county level, it helps us to take smart growth on a larger municipal level and bring it down to the local level. And developing projects on the county level also helps municipalities to apply for implementation funding in the future to actually implement these projects. So it serves a number of purposes. You're covering a lot of geography and a lot of municipalities by planning on the county level. And finally, what we found in many areas of the state, counties are often the de facto planners, especially in rural counties where municipalities don't have the necessary resources or planning staff to do their own planning. In those cases, and in many cases with the counties that we've funded, the county steps into that role and serves as their planner. Next slide, please. So what counties were awarded? In round one, we gave out 5 grants: Albany County, Genesee County, Orange, Sullivan, Tompkins, a very wide geographic scope. We were glad to see that. In round two, we gave grants to Broome County, Chautauqua County, Chemung County, Clinton County, and Washington County. And as I just mentioned, rural counties were particularly interested in this program. In fact, indeed, 8 of the 10 awardees that have received funding from us are considered rural counties, and their county planning departments play a very important role in local and municipal land use and resiliency planning too. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to take a little bit of a historical mental flight through the history of resiliency as it affected New York State and as it grew our resiliency unit at OPDCI. And it actually goes back to 2011 when there were a couple of severe climate-related weather events. One was Tropical Storm Lee, and another one was Hurricane Irene. They were, of course, followed by Superstorm Sandy in 2012. So after Lee and Irene, we took money from our Smart Growth program to try to get communities to think about building back better, building back more resiliently. So we provided mini grants of up to $50,000 to put short plans together while communities were recovering from these disasters so they can think about future land uses from a smart growth lens and a climate resiliency lens. We partnered with FEMA on these recovery plans, and we developed a number of projects for communities that were ultimately funded by other programs. And we created long-term visions for these communities. One great example of a result of this planning initiative was up in the Adirondack North Country, the town of Keene, which lost its firehouse in the floods. And so they identified a number of projects for the future. And one of them was to rebuild their firehouse in a safer location, which they did. So these plans catapulted the resiliency movement forward, but it also got municipalities thinking about how to plan for resiliency. Next slide, please. Next, we saw a series of instances of interagency and intergovernmental resiliency planning. After Superstorm Sandy, DOS participated in the New York Rising Community Recovery and Reconstruction Program. This was funded primarily by the federal government, but DOS administered the funds that were provided, and we developed a strong partnership with EPA and FEMA. We found that EPA and FEMA had entered into a written agreement where their smart growth programs would incorporate resiliency planning, and their resiliency and recovery programs would support smart growth. And from that, we developed a partnership among DOS, EPA, and FEMA called the Long Island Community Resiliency Partnership. And we provided assistance to local governments, aside from the big money projects that the federal government was funding, just to help local governments start infusing resiliency capabilities into their local decision-making. Next slide, please. We developed with FEMA and EPA a local resilience assessment tool. A lot of local governments didn't know what resiliency meant, let alone how to incorporate it into their local actions and plans. So we developed this assessment tool as a jumpstart, a jumping off point for communities to understand resiliency and then pursue resiliency efforts. And we asked a number of questions in this assessment tool. What are you doing to achieve resiliency already? What are you doing that may be at odds with resiliency? What can you do in the future to achieve resiliency? And what are you doing or can do to achieve what's known as FEMA Community Rating System Flood Insurance Certification? It's a program that provides reductions in your flood insurance premiums if you meet certain resiliency criteria. Next slide, please. Then in 2014, again, largely as a result of many of these climate and weather events, the state passed the Community Risk and Resiliency Act, and that codified resiliency in many ways. From that law, we developed sea level rise projections, which are very important for planning and development. We added sea level rise, storm surge, and flooding to our principles of smart growth in the state smart growth infrastructure law. We required model local laws to enhance resiliency, again, to help local governments understand and apply resiliency principles. We required sea level rise, storm surge, and flooding, and a number of permits and siting regulations. And we required guidance on the use of natural and nature-based resiliency measures. We did that here at DOS in partnership with DEC. Next slide, please. In the end, resiliency is ubiquitous. It cuts across so many programs and agencies and levels of government. So collaborative governance is key here. Next slide, please. We could no longer operate in what you see here, which is a traditional bureaucratic siloed org chart. Because as Jamie will tell you, just within our office, resiliency touches on just about every program. So you have to create a system of what I might call networked governance to really achieve these goals. And it looks a little bit like this. It's kind of messy, but it's also the way we must address issues, multidiscipline issues like resiliency, and really achieve the results that we want, which is resiliency on the ground, resiliency built into local governments and communities at every level. I'm now going to turn it over to Jamie to address another program within our OPDC called CLEAR.
Great. Thank you, Paul. So yes, I will continue the conversation and talk a little bit more about the Coastal Lakeshore Economy and Resiliency Initiative. So you'll hear me say CLEAR initiative throughout my segment of the presentation. Next slide. So the CLEAR Planning Initiative, it was established in 2020 by the New York State Department of State. This initiative is focused on supporting local communities along Lake Ontario, the lower Niagara River, and the upper St. Lawrence River as they adapt to fluctuating water levels that go beyond what the community can endure. Next slide. CLEAR was designed to provide a platform for communities to discuss the impacts of recent flood events in 2017 and 2019, as well as ongoing state investments in coastal infrastructure like the Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative, commonly referred to as READY. READY was implemented to address damage from flooding by repairing shorelines and reducing flood risks. READY's risk assessments have been integral to the CLEAR initiative. These assessments helped identify the future needs and opportunities of shoreline communities, contributing to a shared framework for local and regional resiliency strategies. The CLEAR initiative received its initial funding from the New York State Environmental Protection Fund and was a collaborative effort involving the Department of State and Empire State Development. The CLEAR initiative encompasses 59 municipalities distributed across 8 counties. These municipalities are organized into those 5 distinct CLEAR regions. Please note that CLEAR became a fully remote planning effort due to the COVID pandemic. Next slide. The CLEAR planning team consisted of the New York State Department of State, 3 consulting firms, and steering committees, and others as seen on the screen. These diverse committees worked closely with the consultants and DOS throughout the entire planning process, helping to shape the strategies grounded in local insight and expertise. These agencies and organizations contributed in meaningful ways by sharing resource materials, participating in steering committee meetings, and reviewing both the projects and final plans. Next slide. The CLEAR initiative is a participatory planning process. There's a lot to read here on this screen, so I'll try to break it down for you. The initial planning phase spanned 12 months, during which the consultants focused on several key activities to involve community members actively in the planning process and create mechanisms for ongoing community input and feedback, ensuring that local voices were essential to the development of resilience strategies. So there are several steps involved in the planning process. You can see steps 1 through 6, and I'll provide a summary of those. So to understand the community context, a community profile was developed for each municipality that captures the local conditions, assets, and vulnerabilities. Another step required conducting a risk assessment. Please go back. Utilizing READY assets, CLEAR built on the risk assets identified under READY and recognized additional assets and risks specific to each community, ensuring a comprehensive understanding of potential future impacts. The planning process also entailed defining resilience goals and a long-term vision. So each region of those 5 regions established specific goals to enhance community resilience and reduce the likelihood of asset loss. The goals help develop a vision to guide future planning and ensure sustained resilience. And finally, resilience strategies and actions were identified that address the risks and needs specific to each community. The CLEAR initiative provided detailed steps for funding and implementing the CLEAR resiliency recommendations, ensuring practical and feasible pathways for achieving the outlined goals. And again, tonight's feature is looking more in depth at the community-based engagement steps involved with resilience planning. And so on the left side, you can see the various ways local partners were engaged. Throughout the planning process, a wide range of activities were employed to actively involve residents in the planning process. These include a virtual look and listen tour, 3 public workshops where participants could share their concerns and ideas in real time, as well as online surveys aimed at gathering input from a broader audience. Interactive mapping tools were also used, enabling residents to pinpoint specific areas of interest or concern within their communities. Additionally, 8 steering committee meetings were held along with several smaller focus groups, creating more intimate settings for deeper discussions on community priorities. To ensure inclusivity for those with limited technology access, consultants provided socially distanced drop-off points and utilized traditional mail for written feedback. Next slide. The CLEAR initiative set out to achieve several critical goals to ensure communities could effectively adapt to and thrive amidst a changing environmental conditions. So again, tonight's feature will be concentrating on how community-based resiliency planning is supported through the OPDCI program areas. CLEAR initiative focused on promoting vibrant communities by helping communities adapt to variable lake levels and conditions. CLEAR aims to ensure that local areas remain lively and functional despite environmental challenges. The second goal, to embrace coastal connectivity. The CLEAR initiative promotes innovative designs that integrate coastal environments into rebuilding and adaptive strategies, helping communities leverage their natural surroundings in a sustainable manner. To instill among shoreline property owners their vital role in community resilience, fostering a sense of responsibility and involvement in local sustainability efforts. To look at analyzing and promoting coastal development patterns. CLEAR supports the creation of opportunities for both recreation and employment, ensuring that development is both sustainable and beneficial to the community. And finally, CLEAR provides tools to support local governments and leaders, enabling them to take proactive steps in protecting their communities and developing resilient strategies for the future. Collectively, these goals aim to build a strong foundation for community resilience, ensuring that areas affected by coastal changes can adapt and thrive sustainably. Next slide. Again, tonight's feature presentation is a more focused, in-depth look at how community-based resiliency planning occurs. And for the community engagement portion for CLEAR, several engagement and outreach tools were utilized. Also want to remind the audience that, again, this planning process occurred during the COVID pandemic. So the consultants used a range of interactive tools to share information and gather feedback from both steering committees and the public. Communication with the steering committee members was handled by email and phone, while public workshops were promoted through CLEAR regional websites, social media, email, direct mail, local newspapers, and newsletters. Surveys and feedback were collected through tools like Jamboard, Mentimeter, and both online and mail-in surveys, ensuring participation from those with and without digital access. And for example, in Monroe County, the Cornell Cooperative Extension conducted in-person surveys using tablets at 8 boat launches and parks, which provided a safe, distanced way to reach the public, and also meeting the public where they are. Next slide. Overall, the CLEAR initiative developed 11 key recommendations through collaboration with regional steering committees, aligning with the original goals of the initiative. These recommendations are designed to enhance community resilience and adapt to changing water levels and environmental conditions. Here is a summary of each recommendation and its corresponding objective. For number 1, the intent is to establish a collaborative network among communities and stakeholders to share information, resources, and best practices for enhancing regional resilience. Number 2, the aim of this recommendation is to develop a program where experts or advisors provide ongoing support and technical assistance to communities in need. Number 3, provide educational opportunities for community members and leaders to increase their understanding of resilience issues and strategies. Number 4, offer targeted training programs to enhance the skills and knowledge of local officials, planners, and community members in implementing resilience measures. 5, integrate resilience considerations into all planning processes to ensure that future developments and projects account for potential environmental impacts and risks. Number 6, conduct research to better understand the physical and ecological dynamics of shorelines, which can inform more effective management and protection strategies. 7, utilize natural systems and processes, such as wetlands and vegetation, to protect shorelines and reduce the impacts of water level fluctuations. 8, update and integrate resilience considerations into local regulations and policies to support sustainable and adaptive land use. 9, develop strategies for relocating vulnerable infrastructure and communities away from high-risk areas in a planned and organized manner. 10, enhance the resilience of wastewater management systems to prevent disruptions and ensure effective operation during extreme weather events. And finally, integrate blue-green infrastructure solutions, which combine natural and engineered systems to address stormwater management and improve environmental quality. You can access the CLEAR regional plans by using the QR codes on the screen. This will direct you to our New York State Department of State Geographic Information Gateway. And here is our 6th polling question. Would you be interested in learning more about the Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure programs and initiatives? If yes, please share what programs you would like to learn more about. Again, this is an open-ended question, so feel free to type your answer. We'll give you a few moments. Please reflect back on the conversation that Paul and I have shared with you this evening, and also back to that polling question where we asked for your level of knowledge and awareness of some of our programs here at the Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure. As you type your answer, we'll go ahead and advance into our next slide. So we here at the Department of State, we are excited to host a spin-off series from tonight's webinar, which will focus on 3 separate individual webinar events in this upcoming fall. So we'd like to focus on, in September 2025, Introduction to Resilience Principles. Consider this a resilience primer. If some of the words or vocabulary that was used tonight is new for you and you'd like to learn more about adaptation and resilience, we recommend that you come back in September and attend our Introduction to Resilience Principles. The second webinar we'll offer in October of 2025 will feature other types of programs that feature resilience planning. And after you plan, well, there's implementation, and that will come in November of 2025. So how do you put those plans into action? That QR code that you see on the right, again, feel free to sign up for these webinar events. Well, this QR will take you to a Microsoft Forms document where we will collect your information and we will make you aware of when the webinars are scheduled with those specific dates. So the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan Summer Series will pick back up again on Thursday, July 24th at noon for the Helping Communities and Nature Thrive in a Changing Climate by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Feel free to access the registration links on the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan page. And our final polling question, number 7, what do you need more of to better support your local efforts to advance climate adaptation and resilience action at the local level? Please select your top 2 needs. A, the first option, resilient infrastructure such as roads and the electric grid. The second option, B, educational resources. C, the third option, refined and improved systems and policies such as disaster response, building codes. D, the fourth option, centralized guidance, resources, and tools. E, the fifth option, creative funding and financing options. The sixth option, F, other. And the seventh option, G, does not apply to me. Please select your 2 top needs. We'll advance to our next slide as you continue to answer that poll question. If you have any specific feedback or questions about this evening's presentation, or specifically about the Smart Growth or CLEAR programs, Paul and I would be delighted to receive your email. So feel free to contact either one of us and we'll be happy to hear back directly about your interests and questions. So feel free to reach out. Great. So this is our last slide. Please sign up for any additional information about the New York State Adaptation Resilience Plan. This is where you can go to sign up and again receive updates about the planning process. At this point, we can go ahead and open it up to Q&A to our panel team. We have about 10 minutes, so we've got plenty of time to answer any questions that you might have. Again, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat button. You can access those options, those 3 dots on the right-hand side of the screen. Click on that option and you can use the chat or the Q&A feature. We'll give you a few moments to enter your questions. Don't want anyone to feel rushed.
There is one in the chat for the panelists, and I think that's for everyone on the panel, or it can be to Jamie or Paul. And it's, how did this program offering come about?
I'm assuming the program offering in terms of the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan in general, or are we talking more specifically about the Department of State programs such as the Smart Growth Countywide Resiliency Plan or the CLEAR Initiative? If that person could clarify.
Maybe we can talk about how CLEAR came about, as it was the last presented one. Maybe it was that one.
Right. So again, as a reminder, CLEAR came after the READY program, which is the Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative, and it was a result of the flood events that occurred in 2017 and 2019. So READY came first, and then the CLEAR initiative came second.
Thanks, Jamie. And
You're
then the
welcome.
next question looks like, what are the next steps for the CLEAR program?
So right now we have, as I mentioned, a new spot for the 5 CLEAR regional plans. Those are now hosted on the DOS Gateway platform, and please check back at those sites for updates. I know we are building out the Gateway platform to better promote the programs. For implementation, we are accessing a variety of programs to provide funding for implementation. Those 11 key recommendations that were broadly featured across all of the 5 CLEAR regional plans will be promoted through an upcoming implementation for program implementation assistance. So just check back at those QR codes to get those notices.
Thanks, Jamie. I see another question. What resources best represent New York State's experience in managing adaptation and resilience in ocean and coastal communities? So what resources for adaptation and resilience?
Well, here at Department of State, we have a variety of different resources and programs, and I definitely encourage anyone that is still on. I see there's 77 participants, so that's great. Thank you for hanging on to the bitter end here this evening. So please check back at at our OPDCI webpage. I'm hoping maybe our panelists can throw a few links in the chat. We do have our asset inventory and risk assessment tool, which was featured as part of the CLEAR initiative. This is a free spreadsheet, and it does have an accompanying risk map associated again through our gateway mapper, and it is an excellent resource for communities to use. So I encourage you to access the asset inventory and risk assessment tools. We also have our resilience principles, which again, I will encourage everyone to come back in September for our resiliency primer, where we will go through those resilience principles. It's a great way to go through a project idea or planning process to really see that you're hitting a multifaceted approach in supporting resilience across multiple streams. We also have a planning document for nature-based solutions. We have our shoreline monitoring program and framework, which you can also access on the OPDCI webpage. And I'm thinking across to our other fellow panelists, I am sure I'm missing other tools and resources. Can I take a lifeline from any of my colleagues here? Did I hit everything that we have here at Department of State?
If not, pretty close.
Okay.
There's another question about what offices at the county level could be made aware of these programs so that we can speak to our local officials about our county's status on this.
I love that question. So if you have a Office of Planning, it might be under maybe development or economic development, community development. It could be also another opportunity. My roots are in local government, so I do like to think broadly and across agencies. So economic development office. It could be in your community development office. I would also reach out to your superintendent of highways, and every bit of local government has a piece of resilience. And I wouldn't shy away from any one particular department or agency. So think broadly. Your Office of Emergency Management. Sometimes it's called Emergency Management or Emergency Services. They are usually the lead agency for hazard mitigation plans. They should also be made aware of these adaptation and planning resources through the Department of State. And your Soil and Water Conservation District, although a separate entity, there is one for every county across New York State. So that is another countywide authority that I would reach out to be made aware of these planning resources. Well, we are coming up on our hour. This has been a really great conversation, and I encourage you to, again, attend our fall spinoff Department of State webinar series, which will begin in September. Please sign up for those updates, and we will be sure to get you the WebEx link for registration. And again, feel free to reach out to myself or Paul if you have any questions in general about our office at the Department of State. And we just thank you for attending and for your interest. And we encourage you to sign up for updates about the New York State Adaptation and Resilience Plan. It's going to be a great plan, and we're really excited to be a part of the foundational planning process, which is where we are right now. And we really seek a lot of input when those opportunities become available. So thank you again for joining, and we will see you all real soon. Good night, everyone.